Hello and welcome. Thanks again for joining us for another pre-arrival webinar. And today we'll be focusing on campus safety. We have a number of different colleagues gathered together today to speak about different aspects of how we keep our campus community safe. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, my name is Grace Fuller. I serve as the manager of International Student Experience and Engagement here at the International Students and Programs Office. And I'll pass it. We can just go down the line and I'll have my colleagues introduce themselves. So I'll go ahead and pass it to Corporal Sheldon King.
Okay, my name is Sheldon King. I have since been promoted to sergeant, so I'm happy about that. Been at the police department for 16 years now, and it's good to meet you all. No, I can't see you.
Congratulations, Sergeant. And hello, everybody. I'm John Carlos Sr. I'm an attorney, and I'm the director at Student Legal Services. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be.
And we'll pass it to Ashley and Jessica from SARC.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ashley Cooper. I am the lead trainer and community outreach liaison within SARC.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a training and education specialist at SARC.
And then I didn't change the name for Andrew, but I'm Christine. I'm with SFS and I handle student accounts.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pachia Vu, and I'm Assistant Director over at Student Financial Solutions.
So as you can see, we have so many incredible colleagues here to answer a lot, almost, I would think, all of your questions. So we're excited to get into it. But before we begin, a few housekeeping reminders. So you are in listen only mode, which means you can hear us, but unfortunately we can't hear you. So the main way that we'll be interacting today is through the Q&A feature on your Zoom menu bar. If for some reason we don't get to your question today, you can always contact us via iContact.ucsd.edu. And finally, we are recording. So you'll be able to view this webinar recording as well as any previous webinar recording at iwebinars.ucsd.edu and click on webinars for newly admitted students. And then just a friendly reminder, so this is what that Q&A feature will look like. The chat has been disabled for attendees. So again, this will be the main way that you interact with us. We have designated some time at the end for an open question and answer session where we hope to answer many of your questions. So we try to encourage our attendees to wait until that time. But if you have a follow-up question after our presenter has done sharing the slides, you can always ask that follow-up question during the session. Okay, so we're going to start off with some brief reminders from ISPO, the International Students and Programs Office. I'll pass it over to the University of California, San Diego Police Department. Then we'll hear from Student Legal Services, our colleagues here at SARC, as well as our colleagues at Student Financial Solutions, and then we'll end with our open Q&A. So a brief friendly reminder from ISPO is to make sure you complete your first steps checklist. So iNewStudent.ucsd.edu, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this website, but this is our website specifically designed for our newly admitted international students. So here you can find important information about requesting your immigration documents as well as preparing for arrival. It's very likely that if you have questions about how to request your immigration documents, you will be able to find these answers on our website. So you can go, iNewStudent is this first screen on the left, and then you can click on whatever is most relevant to you if you're an undergraduate student or graduate student. And then we also have a feature called Ask Triton in the bottom right-hand corner of our screen that is a search feature. So oftentimes if you have a specific question, you can kind of type in that keyword and it will point you on our website where we talk about that. So that's, I know, a really useful resource that a lot of our students have been utilizing lately. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to Sheldon.
Hello again, I'm Sheldon with the police department. Just next slide, please. All right, as I go through this presentation, you'll hear, or as we go through the presentation, you'll hear scams, scams, scams. Over the years, our international students have been targeted and scams have been one of their biggest issues. All right, so We are a police officers at this university, and the university is big enough to warrant a police department. And the UC San Diego Police Department works with our campus partners to create a safe environment for campus and community members. Next slide, please. So when you get here, there are laws you have to abide by. We have our federal laws that cover the United States, California laws that cover the state of California within the United States, and then the city of San Diego municipal codes that are within the state of California. And then also the university has their own set of rules and laws that you have to abide by. Next slide, please. So when I spoke of scams, the largest loss, $322,000. And if you don't know what that is, I switched it over to the different monetary values in the different countries. And it's not just 322,000. Some have lost over 200,000, 100,000, multiple losses under $100,000. So throughout this, you will hear about scams. All right, next slide, please. The common scams and warning signs. So they will call you and ask you to buy something. So sales, some will pretend to be kings and queens, princes from other countries. They will ask you for money now and in return for giving you a large sum later. Credit card fraud, a big one lately has been threats of arrest, mainly from the Chinese authority. Someone will call pretending to be authority from China and threaten your student visas. So just keep an eye out for that. They'll threat you to that your diploma will be withheld, threats to your visa. They'll offer to pay your tuition in exchange for different types of monetary values, third-party payments, and they will send you links and just try to have you click on those links in order to get into your computers and your accounts. Next slide, please. So the government will never contact you on a phone here in the United States. They will either send you, they will only send you or contact you by mail. So they'll send you a letter. So they will not call you on your cell phone. They will not contact you via email. So just keep an eye out for that as well. Next slide, please. All right, anyone could be anyone on the internet. So do not share your personal information. Do not send nude photos of yourself. That happens a lot with our international students. They will be extorted for money. They will friend all of your friends on social media, get a nude photo of you and then threaten you that they will send it to all your friends unless you send them a large amount of money. So let's keep an eye out for that. Do not meet with anyone you do not know personally, and do not send money to anyone you not have met or know personally. Next slide, please. All right, again, you think you're talking to one of these people, and in reality, next slide, it's this guy right here. So it's me. I'm gonna try to take all of your money. All right, so be careful with that. Know the person personally. Next slide, please. So clues that someone has stolen your identity. You'll discover unexpected withdrawals from your bank account. You stop getting your bills or other mail. Merchants refuse to check your cards. Debt collectors call you about debts that are not yours, and you find unfamiliar accounts on your credit report. The IRS notifies you that more than one of your tax returns were filed. Next slide, please. So ways to protect yourself: contact your consulate, monitor your financial statements, check your credit reports regularly, open an American credit card, basically get an American bank account. If you have something overseas or at your home country, there's pretty much nothing the authorities can do here to protect you, okay, or to try to obtain your money back. So shred your documents, strengthen your passwords, guard your passport visa numbers, use social media wisely, secure your phone, and know the signs of phishing and email scams, and keep your mail safe. Next slide, please. So if you're a victim of a crime, you want to make sure you lock down those compromised accounts, enroll in credit monitoring service, review your bank accounts and your bank statements for unauthorized charges, review your credit reports for unauthorized accounts. And if someone scams you of your overseas account, you could call this number, the 1-877-438-4338. That's for the Federal Trade Commission. They will take your crime reports if your money in your home country bank account has been tampered with or stolen. And then you can also file a report with the local police department. So the UC San Diego Police Department. Next slide, please. So I know I've kind of flew through this, but if you need to contact us, this is the information. You can also email us at askacop@ucsd.edu, and they will, someone will get back to you with that answer. Again, thank you for having me.
Okay, excellent. Thank you again for being here. And of course, this is about campus safety. And of course, scams aren't the only thing that happen at UCSD, although as the sergeant mentioned, it is a really big issue amongst our international students. There, of course, are incidents of crimes happening on campus and around campus. There were several high, well-known issues involving weapons and killings this past weekend around the country, but we've been pretty lucky at UCSD, certainly around campus, that we generally do not see violent crime. So that's why I think it's actually really good news that the police department and I and other folks here are generally not going to be talking about things like violent crime, because they don't happen that frequently. We're not totally immune, but really the biggest issue we see involves scams and frauds and that sort of thing. Yes, there's also, of course, property crime. And yes, you have to be careful, and you have to take laws involving drinking and driving very seriously. Don't drink and drive. It's just not worth it anymore. And there are plenty of other options. When it comes to your personal property, there are things you can do to protect it, like getting renter's insurance and other things. So I want to mention all that before I get into my section all about scams and frauds, that sort of a thing. But again, my name is John Carlos Sr. I'm an attorney, and I'm the director at Student Legal Services. My office provides free, confidential counseling, education, and referrals to all currently registered UCSD students. So in other words, as long as you are a student at UC San Diego, you have 2 free lawyers to come talk to about any and all legal issues, questions, or problems you might have. And as I said, it's totally free and it's totally confidential, and we're not allowed to tell anybody anything unless you get us written permission. So if you think that you might be a victim of a scam or a fraud, if you believe that somebody has stolen your identity, but also, of course, if you have questions about living off campus and signing leases, if you get a parking citation or a traffic ticket, if you have an encounter with the UC Police Department and end up with a citation or an arrest, you can come talk to us, and it's totally free and totally confidential. Next slide, please. Okay, so a few things to talk about. As I said previously, I'd be, of course, talking about scams. Also talk about insurance, which isn't a scam, but it's, I think, really important for folks to particularly international students to understand the insurance system in the United States. And then lastly, about off-campus housing, because that is the single biggest issue that we see at Student Legal Services. Next slide, please. Okay, so yes, there are some very common scams that we see pretty regularly and that the police department sees pretty regularly. They usually involve asking you to deposit a fake check and to make a real electronic money transfer, although also there are plenty of phone calls. I still get them a few a week. They'll be from somebody from Social Security or the IRS or Homeland Security or ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And as the sergeant mentioned, sometimes it'll be folks pretending to be authorities from other countries. Those are fake, okay? The government will never call you. They'll also, of course, warn you, don't tell anybody or talk to anybody. If you have any questions or concerns, you should reach out. If you have any, if you're worried at all, and chances are if you are concerned about a thing, it probably is a scam. So be very careful. Some scams, some areas that we'll see commonly scams being attempted are in terms of renting and off campus. So listings, whether on Craigslist or unfortunately sometimes, although rarely anymore, but sometimes on the off-campus housing.ucsd.edu website. So that's our very legitimate campus website for helping folks find places to live off campus. But every once in a while, you'll see fake posts and folks requesting that you send big security deposit amounts. And I would obviously encourage you to do everything you can to do your homework and make sure if you are going to rent off campus that it is legitimate residence and rental. I'll also see fake job opportunities, which shouldn't be too big of an issue, of course, for international students. But of course, some students can get OPT or CPT, and yes, there will be fake jobs. Every once in a while, even I will see them again through the UCSD official website at Career Services and Handshake. Again, if it's anything where they're saying that you can work for them and they'll first send you a check, all you need to do is deposit it, and then you can send it on to other folks or do other things. That's almost certainly going to be fake. Yes, we have issues involving fake merchandise. And of course, there's plenty online, but there also occasionally will get cases where folks actually drive to a parking lot on campus and start selling fake merchandise out of the backs of their cars, and that obviously you need to be very careful of. Anything involving prepaid cards, if they say, okay, you have to send us an iTunes gift card, or you have to send us Bitcoin or anything like that, that's going to be a scam. Okay, do not send any money until and unless you actually have the keys to the rental, and or at least have had a chance to look at it and to verify that yes, it's a legitimate place that you might have to rent. Do not send any money until you have the merchandise as part of an exchange, or any before you sign any contract. You want to make sure that you have, again, particularly for leases for off campus, you want to make sure that you have seen the contract, that you know it's legitimate, that you verified that yes, it's a legitimate rental. Okay, very hard to do, and I really appreciate that, particularly if you're not in the United States and you're trying to find a place off campus to live. But I'd say it's even worth coming to town if possible beforehand, staying at a hotel, and verifying in person that what you're signing up for is legitimate. So next slide, please. So as I said previously, thank you for that. In terms of insurance, absolutely not a scam, although of course insurance is a tricky business. And so a few of the subjects that I want to mention that our international students, and really all students, will have questions about include the following. So as a UCSD student, you will need to have medical insurance, and typically that includes dental insurance. So keep in mind that at least under the United States healthcare system, the way it works is that your medical/health folks might have advice or suggestions about certain things to do. And for example, procedures, but that doesn't mean that your insurance will cover it. And so it's important for you, even if you have a doctor, a dentist, recommending that you, for example, undergo a certain procedure, you want to make sure that you contact your insurance to clarify whether you will be covered by that. Otherwise, you might end up having to pay out of pocket. So what a doctor or nurse or dentist says may not be what your medical or dental insurance actually covers. So one thing that I've seen particularly is Invisalign, which is a way to sort of get your teeth straight, basically, or any cosmetic dental work. It's something that students will be interested in. and will be told by their doctor or dentist to get it. And then they'll be surprised to find out that it costs them thousands of dollars out of pocket. So keep in mind that again, it's not a scam, but it's important to know that you might have to pay out of pocket because insurance may not cover it. If you're living off campus, or even if you're living on campus, you can and absolutely should get the best renter's insurance you can afford. Renter's insurance includes a number of different things. It could include personal property coverage, so coverage for your computer or your bicycle or any other expensive personal property items. So it protects you against loss, theft, or damage. You can also get liability insurance, which comes with most renters insurance policies. That's if somebody gets hurt, say while visiting you at your apartment. But you can expand on that and get insurance that includes, plumbing floods, and that unfortunately is an issue that our students will occasionally come across, as a plumbing pipe will burst and it will cause damage to the unit. So you want to get the best insurance that covers for that, as well as coverage in case of any mold or mildew. And you can get a particular type of insurance that includes loss of use coverage. So that's if there is something catastrophic like a flood in a residence because of a leaking sink or an overflowing toilet. If something serious like that happens and construction needs to occur and you need to stay somewhere else for a temporary period of time, then that's where loss of use coverage comes in. That basically covers you in terms of staying at a hotel. Otherwise, the landlord might not be responsible for it, and that might be a pretty big bill. So renter's insurance, I don't have a particular recommendation in terms of a company. As I said, just do your best to shop around and get the best coverage you can afford. If you're going to be driving, get the best automobile insurance you can afford. Whether or not if you own and regularly drive a car, if you do, then you have to get insurance. Or even if you just get it for, say, a spring break or a long weekend, a road trip that our international students frequently like to do on breaks. Get the best car insurance that you can absolutely get. If you just get liability insurance, that covers you if say an accident occurs and it's your fault. It does not cover you otherwise. So in my opinion, liability insurance is not enough. If you want more information about insurance and other things, check out our website. I apologize for that pretty long URL there, but you can go to our Student Legal Services website, look for legal resources, and you'll see a link to an introduction to California and US law. And it talks about insurance. It talks about how to about driving laws and how to buy a car if necessary or rent a car. So hopefully that would be helpful for you. Next slide, please. Okay, and then as I said previously, our single biggest issue is living off campus and how to protect your security deposit, the amount of money that you pay at the beginning of your lease. A couple things to keep in mind. Each and every tenant / roommate, in other words, each person who signs a lease, so you and your roommates, are each jointly and severally liable, as well as any co-signers / guarantors on a lease. So what that means is basically each tenant can be held personally responsible for 100% of the obligations under a lease. So if the next month's rent comes up and you pay your share, but your roommate doesn't pay their share, the landlord has the right not just to legally pursue your roommate, but also everybody who signed in the lease, so including you. If you have a roommate who's breaking the no pet policy, you can lose your security deposit because of that. So keep in mind that you're entering into a very serious contract, not just with the landlord, but also with your roommates, okay? So consider using a roommate agreement. We have one, again, on our website under legal resources, followed by sample forms and agreements at Student Legal Services, where you can sort of customize a document just to clarify how much each tenant is paying in terms of the monthly rent, in terms of the security deposit, in terms of who's paying for utilities, that sort of a thing. Second, protect your security deposit. So again, that's an amount of money that you pay at the beginning of the lease. And there are things you can do at the very beginning of your lease to protect it so that you get it back at the end of your lease. So that's what a security deposit is for. So what you want to do, among other things, is take lots of pictures, like take lots of photos when you move in, as well as when you move out, to document the condition of the place. All right. You can also, and absolutely should, also complete an inspection checklist. You can find a sample one at the Student Legal Services website. So that's a form where you actually identify any issues or problems as you go through an inspection. So that, and that's really important at the beginning of the lease, so that you don't get charged for any damage that already existed when you moved in. You also want to make sure that as the lease ends, that you give your landlord notice in writing that you do plan to terminate the lease. So even if the lease says that it ends on June 30th of next year, you still have to give the landlord at least 30 days written notice. So in other words, by the end of May, to let your landlord know that, yes, you are not going to be renewing the lease. Otherwise, you might get charged for another month's rent. You can do a pre-move out inspection, and you should absolutely do that before you move out of a place, as well as an initial a move-in inspection and a move-out inspection. So 3 total inspections that are important. Put any repair requests or other communications with your landlord in writing. A lot of times that's what's required of the lease. And then, of course, contact Student Legal Services for lease review or questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's it for me. There's our contact information. A few other things I'm just going to mention really quickly. As I said previously, DUIs, driving while under the influence of alcohol, they're taken very seriously, so do not drink and drive. Number one. Number two, marijuana. Marijuana is legal in California, but it only under certain circumstances, and it is not legal to have or to use on campus because it's still against federal law, which can be very confusing. But keep in mind that just because it's legal in California doesn't mean that it's legal in all circumstances. So you can't, for example, consume marijuana in public. And as I said previously, you can't consume it or possess it on campus. Same with weapons. If you have any issues with the police, I'll just really quickly say, you do not have to speak to the police. You have to identify yourself. But beyond that, if you have anything to say that you're concerned about, if you're being asked questions, you have the right to remain silent. And you can say, I wish to remain silent. Do not lie. Do not ever physically resist a police officer. But keep in mind that you do have rights in terms of protecting yourself when you do speak to one. So if you have questions about that or anything else, there's our contact information. You're going to be fine, and we're looking forward to having you. Just be smart about these sorts of things. With that, I will conclude and pass it on to my colleagues. And thank you for your attention.
Hello, everyone. So I am Ashley Cooper, again, the lead trainer and community outreach liaison for Care at the Sexual Assault Resource Center. We are the campus resource for all students, staff, and faculty who have experiences of sexual assault, relationship violence, or stalking. Some of our services include support services. So we have a team of confidential victim advocates. So like John Carlos in Students Legal Services, we are also a confidential campus resource for all students. Our support services, which our advocates provide, include 24/7 support. So whether after hours, over weekends, breaks, holidays, if you need to contact our office for any type of support related to an instance of sexual assault, relationship violence, or stalking, we can be reached. The second area of our support services is our options and rights, which includes reviewing reporting options. This can also include providing accompaniments. So our victim advocates can, at this time, virtually provide an accompaniment, whether via phone or via Zoom, to any appointments that someone may have, whether it's an investigative meeting with law enforcement, whether it is a forensic exam or a medical procedure, or even through court procedures. The third area of service for our victim advocates include our advocacy and case management services. So sometimes after someone has had a traumatic experience, they maybe need to have some support in creating a safety plan. This might involve looking at their routine, both in person and looking at their digital footprint. So what are your privacy settings on your social media? How do you share information related to your schedule and your whereabouts on social media that make you more accessible? This can also include having conversations with other people who share a residence with someone. So maybe we need to create a safety plan that also includes the support of roommates or other people that you might live with. Additionally, after traumatic experiences, sometimes people have concerns with their academics. Maybe they've felt unsafe to go to class and therefore they've been missing some class, or they haven't been sleeping and eating well. So their studying habits are off and they have an upcoming exam that they're worried about performing well on. Our advocates can possibly reach out to your department or to your professor and maybe ask for some extensions or some other provisions in support. We can also work with housing, employers to make referrals or to ask for reassignments. So maybe you want to move to a different dormitory, and our team can work with the housing department to see if that's available and help get that request processed for you. We can also make resource referrals. So some people sometimes will have needs that they want to seek counseling for. We can provide resource referrals to on-campus entities like our Counseling and Psychological Services, or CAPS for short, but we can also make external referrals to entities that are within the larger San Diego community as well. And then our last area of support services are crisis and healing programs. So we have individual crisis support where people can meet with our advocates on a one-on-one basis. But then we also facilitate groups focused on trauma recovery, including our support groups that typically run once per quarter. And then as our campus navigates restrictions in our resuming of in-person activities in the wake of COVID-19, we hope that we can repilot some of our holistic healing programs that we had, like our Yoga is Healing program. So then the next area of services that we have are our education and training services. And that's really where Jessica and I come in. So we are constantly working to make sure that we're providing education across our campus that focuses on consent, healthy relationships, bystander intervention, and safety and risk reduction strategies, so that we're giving everyone in the UC San Diego community tools to have healthier interactions, to have healthier relationships, and to make sure that we're reducing the prevalence of violence in our community. And we're doing that through the four categories that you see listed, which the first is mandatory education. So all incoming students will receive mandatory education from our department, whether they get that online or in person. There will be some type of education provided from SARC. We also have peer education, which this is a program where It's a volunteer opportunity for Tritons within the community to come be trained on the different topics of consent, healthy relationships, and bystander intervention so that they can go out and help us spread that message to their peers. And they help us support tabling activities that happen on an ongoing basis on campus, as well as some of the events and activities that we will host as a department. Thirdly, we host events and programs, as I just mentioned. And so these are educational programs delivered throughout the year and upon request. So student organizations can request for CARE at SARC to come in and provide training, but we also are busy providing training during certain awareness months. So every October, we provide trainings and educational opportunities related to Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Every January, we do the same for National Stalking Awareness Month. And every April, our office really makes a concentrated effort to raise awareness of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, or SAM, as you may have heard of it before. And then we provide trauma-informed trainings. And these are for professional staff members, but also for student employees. So many of my colleagues here on the professional staff side have had a trauma-informed training from CARE at SARC, which really focuses on giving them a tool guide for how they can provide a trauma-informed response to a disclosure of violence from a survivor if that happens in their capacity while working. We also provide similar trainings to student employees who may receive disclosure. So a lot of our student employees who go on to hold positions within our student centers, like our LGBTQRC or our Women's Center or our BRC, receive similar types of trainings. Next slide. So services during COVID-19. So at this point, our office is operating on a hybrid capacity, meaning we are in office some days and we are outside of the office on others. And because of this, we are asking that if you need to reach our office, that you contact us by phone, which is 858-534-5793. It is staffed 24/7 by trained counselors. They will answer the call, triage, and assess if it is urgent. If it is urgent, there is always an on-call victim advocate for our office who is ready and on standby to support in those instances. You can request an appointment to meet with our victim advocates by emailing careadvocate@ucsd.edu. We just ask that if you are using emails, that you keep them more brief and succinct, because emails are ultimately property of the university. So please do not use a ton of identifying information. Also, don't include a lot of people on the email thread. Really just focus on reaching out by introducing yourself, asking if there's any upcoming appointments because you'd love to speak with someone for our team. And then lastly, our prevention services. So our educational programs are fully available even while we are in this virtual sphere. And to request a program or for more information on our program services, you can email careinfo@ucsd.edu. And so with that being said, this is more of our information. You can reach us on the web by visiting care.ucsd.edu, or you can visit us on Instagram to really stay up to date with the latest happenings that are going on with our office by finding us at UCSD Care. And then again, the contact information for reaching our victim advocates is provided below in the yellow box, and you can reach them 24/7 at 858-534-5793. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Christina Key from Student Financial Solutions, and I will be going over how to avoid housing and tuition scams. Next slide, please. So first, you want to make sure to protect your login credentials. Do not share your credentials or your financial information with anyone, just to ensure that you're the only one that has access to your account. Second, you want to make sure that you're using official UCSD approved payments. So a couple examples of that is if you have a US bank account, you can pay online using the routing and account number. If you want to pay using credit card, you can also do that online. If you're an international student, you can pay using Flywire or Western Union. The third thing is that you should avoid third-party solicitations for payment of tuition fees. Generally, the third-party agencies will ask for a snapshot of your bill so that they know how much to send the school. They wouldn't ask you for the payment personally and directly. We want to make sure that you guys are aware of WeHousing. Students who use the third-party company WeHousing tend to receive eviction notices because they never received payments. The owners never received their payments. Generally, the student would send the money to WeHousing, but WeHousing wouldn't send it to the owners. If you're receiving a suspicious call, make sure to hang up and then contact UC San Diego Police to submit a report. And then you would want to notify ISPO or your international student advisor to see what resources are out there for you guys. Next slide. And here's our contact information. Our office is on the 3rd floor of the Student Services Center. We're open from Monday through Wednesday and Friday from 8 to 4 and Thursday from 10 to 4. If you have any questions, you can call our phone line or submit a case through the support portal. And then if you want to follow our Instagram, we have general information and updates on billing due dates.
All right, thank you so much to our campus partners, excuse me, for sharing so much good information. I'm going to go over a few last reminders of ways that you can already start to get involved in our campus community. So for our graduate students on the webinar today, I know many of you have already signed up for Grad Pals. We're really excited about that. But in case you haven't heard of this program, it's a peer mentorship program that matches our incoming graduate students with current graduate students at UC San Diego, most commonly within their same department. So we are recruiting both continuing and incoming students now, and you can expect to receive your Grad Pal match in June. And for our undergraduate students, we have a very similar program called GAP, which is our Global Ambassador Program. So GAP pairs incoming international undergraduate students with current students. And in the mentor application or in the mentee application, you can say what you would like to receive in a mentor. So maybe you're hoping to be matched with a mentor from your same home country, or potentially in your same college, or potentially with your same major. So you can go ahead and I'm gonna try to drop these relevant links in the chat for your utilization. And again, you can expect to be matched with your mentor in June. All right, so if Grad Pals and GAP are summer-long peer mentorship programs, then international peer coaching is a year-long for your first year at UC San Diego. So international peer coaches are assigned to each of the colleges, and this is an optional coaching program that you opt into. So if you're interested in learning more about what a peer coach does and how meeting with a peer coach might benefit you, you can learn more about it at ipeercoaching.ucsd.edu and email any follow-up questions you might have to internationalpeercoach@ucsd.edu. I'm also really excited to announce that we've just released this year's version of Surf Check coming to UC San Diego Guide. So this guide covers a lot of really helpful information. So everything from what to pack to documents that are required to travel and any emergency context for you while you're traveling. It talks about different transportation options getting from the airport to campus. It talks about ways to get set up in the US. So when you're setting up a US bank account, which was recommended on this webinar, setting up a US phone number, potentially exploring getting a government issued photo ID. So this Surf Check covers a lot of really helpful topics. It's hyperlinked. We've heard a really useful resource for our students. And so I just dropped the link into the chat. And then finally, our iEvents calendar is always filled with different opportunities for engagements, and that's a really easy URL, iEvents.ucsd.edu. And something that I want to make sure all of our students are aware of are the new student health requirements for our incoming class of students. So all incoming students will need to complete 3 health requirements by July 11th, 2022. These requirements include complying with the COVID vaccination requirement, completing the TB risk assessment questionnaire, and 3, completing the regular immunization requirement. A failure to meet these requirements may result in an inability to enroll in fall 2022 classes. If you have any questions about these health requirements, I apologize, I have some construction happening outside. I just dropped the link in the chat where you can learn more about these health requirements. And then as well as it has contact information for you to ask any follow-up questions. All right, so again, things you can start doing right now is request your visa documents in iPortal. This Thursday, we'll have a pre-arrival webinar focusing on student finances and accounts, joined by our colleagues from Student Financial Solutions. On May 24th, we have our undergraduate student life webinar. On July 11th, remember that's the deadline to complete those 3 health requirements. And in September, we're very excited to welcome you at New International Student Orientation. And you can learn more about that at iorientation.ucsd.edu. All right, so final reminders before we transition into our open Q&A. We hope that you will connect with us on Instagram. So we have a lot of fun. That's usually where we engage with a lot of our students. We actually created an Instagram filter pack to celebrate you as a new Triton. So you can follow us at ISPO.ucsd.edu, and you can always email our office at iNewStudent.ucsd.edu. Okay, so we've already had some good questions come in via the chat. And so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of provide some verbal reminders. So we had some questions about how can students know what is covered in UCSD medical insurance, or SHIP, which is the Student Health Insurance Plan. So as a friendly reminder, we did have a pre-arrival webinar in which we invited our colleagues from Student Health to go over insurance and immunization requirements. So I recommend watching that webinar if you haven't already. And then you can always visit the Student Health Insurance website, and I'll go ahead and put this in the chat as well, to see what's covered, as well as I'll put their contact information down there if you have any additional questions. All right. And so for grad pals, if you sign up for a grad pal, we will definitely try to get you matched. We'll do our best to try to get you matched within your same department. That's often what our students prefer. But yes, we will definitely, if we can't get you matched within the same department, we might try to do something similar and work with you on a case-by-case basis to make sure you're matched with at least someone. And we have a lot of continuing students really excited to help welcome our new students. Yes. Okay. So I'm seeing some additional questions about the vaccine requirements. And so I'm going to put some contact information in the chat for you to be able to refer and get those questions answered. Let me go ahead and find some of these there. Sure. Okay. So we have had a question come in via the chat about the difference between a GAP mentee and a grad pal. So essentially, grad pals and GAP are 2 similar programs. They're peer mentorship programs, but one is for our graduate students and one is for our undergraduate students. So grad pals is for our graduate students. So if you're an incoming student, you're going to have a grad pal mentor. You will be the grad pal mentee. And if you're an undergraduate student, if you're an incoming undergraduate student, you will be the GAP mentee, the Global Ambassador Program mentee, and you will request to have a GAP mentor. So that's a little bit about the difference between, and I'll go ahead and try to put another link in the chat where you can learn more about our peer mentorship programs. All right, I see a question coming in about updating your financial document for your I-20. So please, you can go ahead and email iNewStudent with questions about that regarding your initial I-20 document. Right. To my campus partners, are there any other last reminders or things you would like to impart with our guests in terms of things that they can remember for campus safety and how to best stay safe during their time here at UC San Diego. I would just like to echo that, similar to what my campus partners shared during the presentation, I think we're actually really lucky that UC San Diego is a very safe campus by and large. We do know that unfortunately, sometimes our international students can be the target of scams, which is why we spend so much of today's presentation making sure that you have all the information you need so that you don't fall suspect to any of those scamming attempts. We do have a website actually dedicated to different safety tips, and that's iSafety.ucsd.edu. But then we have so many, as you can see, campus partners here in place to help you really navigate. So if something seems too good to be true, it often is. And you can always reach out to us and kind of vet those opportunities. So if something feels a little bit suspect to you, you can always, we have so much good contact information on the screen here. There's so many people here in place to support you during your time here at UC San Diego, and we're really excited to welcome you. So I'll go ahead and leave one more minute for any last minute questions to come in, and then I'll go ahead and wrap us up for today.
I suppose I could mention one or two things. A lot of folks on campus get around on bicycles, wear a helmet, protect your head. If you're on a scooter, same thing. And it's actually, and so there are plenty of like micro mobility devices, as they're called. You know, bring a lock, make sure that if you have your own personal one, be really careful when you're driving around campus. Skateboards, you don't need a helmet, but you should probably wear one. But if you have an electric skateboard, you absolutely do need a helmet. So there's things like that that you just sort of want to keep in mind when you get here. If you have any questions, reach out, contact us. You know.
Yeah, I was just going to say one last thing as well. From the police department perspective, we'll talk more in the orientation where we're getting a little more detail regarding what to expect when you get to the campus. But the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is just being safe and being aware of your surroundings. And it's not being paranoid or anything, it's just being aware. And hope to see you all in the fall. And thank you.
A huge thank you to our campus partners for presenting today and sharing so much good information. And to echo, we are so excited to support you now, but also to welcome you in person in the fall as you begin your journey as a Triton. Thank you and have a great rest of your day, everyone.